Good evening, everyone. Hope all is well.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Hi. Nice to see somebody from DYCD. Hello, Mr. Miller. Hello, Jeremy. Mr. Johnson, thank you for also coming and presenting tonight. Looking forward to hearing everybody. Hi, Rev.
Hi. Good evening, everyone.
So I think we're close to quorum, right? We got a good group here. Patricia, Otara, Russell. Still getting used to this new meeting agenda. Huh, Carly?
I'm just
Carly. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Carly. Carly, can you make sure that everybody here gets the announcement from the East Harlem Community Partnership about our scholarship for youth?
You are ahead of yourself. Wait, just a couple slides and it's there.
Oh, it's there? Oh, thank you. Okay. I didn't know. Hi, Ava.
Hi, everyone.
Who else do I need to talk? Hello, John.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine. Hi, Andrew. I don't know you, but hi.
Nice to see you.
Let's see. Jeremy Lockett, I think you come from, don't tell me, the DA's office?
Yes, ma'am. Nice to see you tonight.
I'm starting to remember. I'm feeling some kind of way today.
Hey, that's all good. I like that. I like that. Sun's out. We in it. You know.
That sounds
I got
good,
to feel
Angela.
somebody.
Spirit,
Hi.
Good to see
Huh?
everybody.
spirit and the love.
No, you know, I've been going through, I had a really crazy last couple of weeks. I lost my aunt. I had to plan a
sorry.
funeral because she didn't have any children. And I just got free as of like Thursday of last week. And so I'm feeling like, yes, I can breathe again. Because
Don't worry,
planning a
we'll-
funeral is intense. It's like planning a really big party, except you only have 6 days to do it. Okay. So,
On that note,
yeah,
on that note, we have quorum.
we have
So
quorum.
we
Good.
have quorum. Great, great. So just bear with me. We do have a new beginning and a new kind of process by which we conduct the meeting. So again, Carly's going to help me through this process. And again, welcome everybody to CB11 Youth and Education Meeting. It's May 11th, 2021, and we have some wonderful guests. It's always a 6-degree separation. So I run a DYCD Compass and Sonic programs. So it's great to have Mr. Miller. Mr. Johnson, I know, well, we have a fellow connection who works in the program that used to chair this committee, Hector Nazar. So we're glad to have him. And the connection was Eva also mentioned bringing Marcus to present. So again, our community is very active. Jeremy is a longstanding member for our DA's office. And all those that came before him have also sat in that seat. So we keeping it warm for the next person. Not that we want you to leave, Jeremy, but it's really great to have that ongoing connection and at our meetings and a presence. Mr. Dennis Rivera Cash, hi, welcome as well. And all members of the committee, good to see everybody tonight. We do have some housekeeping rules that we do have to go over. Right, Carly, do I read off the screen? So we are to ask that nobody speak until recognized or granted the floor by the chair. We ask that you use the hand raise. CBO members, if you have questions, please use the hand raise in the chat and within the Zoom, within the chat. And if, what is this? I'm so sorry. If you click the participants icon in the panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. So if you go down to where it says participants and you hit that button, where it's underneath the participant names, there'll be a hand thing to raise your hand, which I'm sure most of us know, but it's a little different when you got to tell everybody about it. So, again, any other ground rules, Carly, or is that it? Oh, the chat function should be very limited and not used to raise questions or to ask questions. If you want to raise questions, you should follow that process that we had just mentioned before. Chat should only be used to alert if there are any problems where people are not able to hear or communicate or whatever assistance they may need. Carly, our director, not director, Carly, who's our, oh God, I'm having a good time tonight, who's our community board liaison, assistant district manager, Carly Wine. She will support anybody and help with any assistance. Yeah, Andrew, I know she's been sending you the emails. She's so diligent for us.
He's fantastic.
In our work. And again, thank you for being here tonight. Please, again, restrict your comments or questions and germane to the discussion that we are having so that we do stay focused. You know, again, when we get back to live meetings, that's when we can have all our side conversations at the end of meetings and address certain things. But we really want to stay focused and really conduct a meeting that addresses the issues and topics that are being discussed. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects of the agenda, please raise your hand through the Zoom and wait to be recognized. I'm still learning to manage this in a different way, so I'll always, Carly can please assist, or if Rev Brown, if you see somebody has a question that I haven't gotten to, or a raised hand so that we can support them in that process. So at this moment, we'll do a call to order and we will do the roll call and Carly will do the roll call. Getting better?
Yeah, great. Brown,
Here.
Chen. Dominic,
Here.
Giordano,
Present.
Green,
Here.
Harvey,
Present.
Heredia, Martin,
Here.
got you. McCullough,
Here.
okay. Perez,
Present.
Scott,
Here.
Schuler,
Present.
and Wu. He said he would be running late. Quorum.
Thank you again, everybody. So I hope everybody's had time to review the agenda prior to the meeting. We're going to ask that we do an adoption of the agenda. All those in favor say aye. All those that oppose, please acknowledge. And anybody sustained, please acknowledge. No?
Aye.
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 As well, I hope that, you know, again, everybody's had time to review the minutes from April, from the last meeting. You know, again, as the process is, we will be adopting those minutes formally into the meeting. So again, we'll do the same process with the adoption of the agenda, adoption of the committee minutes for April. All those in favor say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
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 And if there are no sustains, I think the ayes have it, so we will begin, right? Colleen? I don't know if Caleris is with us tonight, so we will move to the informational updates.
We just have these announcements here
Okay,
first.
sure.
Yeah. So Angela, would you like to give this announcement?
Yeah, this is yours.
Hi, everybody. So college-bound East Harlem seniors can now apply for the annual East Harlem Community Partnership Scholarship through May 31st. It's a digital application. You can go online and do it. You can connect to our Facebook page. It's not just though for high school seniors. We also opened it up this year because of COVID to anyone who may be a family that you're working with, that anyone that is in a training or did an OSHA and they need to get their license, they too can apply and we will foot the cost of a license or any certification that they need. You can also let's say children that need uniforms for school. You get the receipts, you can submit them, and we'll consider reimbursing you for the cost of the clothing. So we're just doing this to try to help everybody in East Harlem. Remember that the people, you have to live in 10029 or 10035. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. And then the next committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, June 8th at 6:30 p.m.
So Carly, I just want to take a pause for a moment. Last meeting, and I just want to make sure we're following up in relation to doing the minutes and actually. So at last month's meeting, Reverend Brown said that she would do the minutes. And I want to make sure, and then Eva said she would help. And then we said going forward, Eva could do them this month. And I think what falls very nice, what we'll do going forward in terms of taking the minutes by members is that we'll do it by alphabetical order. So since Reverend Brown started and she's B, and Eva Chan is next in C, and then Angela, prepare, you're going first with D next month, and that will cover us through June. And then I will do the minutes as my name falls after Eva, after Angela, and then we'll go forward in the committee, just so that we keep a process. It's all understood. When your name comes up, if you're absent at that meeting, we will follow up and get you at the next meeting. So don't think you'll escape it by not coming to your meeting when your minutes are time to do. But it's just very helpful.
I'm feeling sick already. No, what does that require? I'm gonna be honest with you. Am I just supposed to be taking notes? Or do I get to see the recording and then kind of create the minutes from everything?
Well, we never used to have the recordings to that extent as we have now, but you do get the recording and you will be able to review it. Sometimes writing the minutes, reviewing the recording in totality will take you longer than the meeting to write the minutes, but that's by choice. I know I've done long minutes and short minutes.
I haven't really had to do minutes in a long time.
So
Is there an outline?
Yes.
Angela, it's Eva tonight. Okay, next month it will be you. I will sit with you and go over how we take the minutes.
Oh, I thought I had to do them tonight for next month. So I do them next month for July.
Yeah. Well, yes, you do them for, you do June's meeting in the committee for the June presentation and the full board.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you got to get up. I'll take your minutes and I'll get up and I'll do the spiel. Unless I call out sick and then Red Brown, I'll have to get up and do the spiel.
Okay. Thank you very much for the information.
No problem. And
I think I'm gonna get married to somebody with a name that begins with Z. Okay.
Yeah, but then your wait lasts for a lot of things when you would come up first, so it's a choice. But anyway.
Just kidding. Sorry.
And remember, in the Bible, they said the last shall be first and the first shall be last.
Yes, John. I'm good. I'm sorry if I segue.
Swings back and forth. Anyway, we're very lucky tonight to have Andrew Miller from DYCD here tonight. As I said, I work for Children's Aid Society. I want to make sure we have all full disclosure. I do run a Sonic Middle School Explorer Compass program, and I think we do very well. We're doing a learning lab currently, and we will also be doing one of the summer risings at PS 72. So I'm all transparent. And you know, I want to thank DYCD. Again, they're making adjustments, and I know funding is still coming forward. We did receive our Sonic funding, so that was our concern initially, the middle school funding as a community. But Mr. Miller, the floor is yours, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to see all of you this evening. I know usually you'll hear from Alex, who comes to my shop, but I wanted to take this opportunity to share some good news that kind of David mentioned. As you may know, last month, the mayor announced Summer Rising. This is really like a dream come true, where we're actually going to align DOE and DYCD to provide summer activity during the summer. So basically, it's going to be, we're going to bring DOE's academic programs into a singular experience for young people, particularly those communities hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Students K through 8 will be connected to academic classes, enrichment programming, including field trips, art activities, and outdoor recreation activities To sign up, you can, and to find locations, you could go on Discover DYCD, which is our new online platform that includes mapping. And again, it's open to all young people. You don't have to go attend a public school. And as David also mentioned, the executive budget actually restores a lot of that summer Sonic, so we don't have that that fight this year for that. Also, the mayor announced an additional 5,000 slots for the Summer Youth Employment Program. So this year, we're on track to serve 75,000 young people through that program with an investment of $167 million. So we're looking forward to that. Another new exciting initiative, and I think this will be particularly well liked in the community board. The executive budget includes more money to expand Saturday Night Lights. So it's a youth development and violence prevention program. It's funded in partnership with our district attorneys and the NYPD, and it's going to be expanded from 20 to about 100 locations throughout the city. So we're still getting those on board, but I think you'd love to hear about that. We're also launching what's called New York City Unity Works. It's going to be the country's largest and most comprehensive workforce development program ever created for LGBT communities. And it will specifically focus on supporting homeless and runaway LGBT youth. So it really arrives at a right time that we know that so many communities, the challenge has been exacerbated, particularly for LGBTQ youth. And it's going to really help them find meaningful work, housing, mental health services, and other supports that they need to survive and thrive. So we're really excited about that. It's going to be through the New York City Unity Project, the New York City Center for Youth Employment, the Mayor's Fund to Advance the City of New York, and the Ali Forney Center. And I just want to just take a moment to step back to see where we're at under this administration. Under Bill de Blasio, we went from having 253 runaway and homeless youth beds to now we're up to 813. And we actually expanded the ages of young people that are eligible to be served by this up to 24. We opened drop-in centers in all 5 boroughs that are open 24/7. We expanded our after-school programs for young people. So David, as you know, we took what was then called out of school time, and we made it into these Compass and Sonic programs. The budget, now you gotta look, the budget grew from $150 million to $381 million. And it's at about 900 locations now. We also expanded programming for residents of public housing through our Cornerstone Community Center programs. They are now at, ready, 99 locations, and we're gonna start onboarding more. And even Mayor Dinkins' signature beacon programs is now at 91 locations, and we're actually going to add another one. So we're really excited about this. You know, we look forward to working with you. We urge you, if conditions allow, to become a work site for the Summer Youth Employment Program. And with that, I'll give you back the floor and see if you have any questions.
Keep hitting, but I'm good now. Thank you. And I'll have about 60 SYAPs at my site working in different capacities. Again, many of them also support our summer camp programs. Many of them give opportunities for the teens that we serve to learn job skills and job readiness while they're in a comfortable place that they know and can really develop the skills. I say all teens I work with, take one of them summer camp jobs, because those are the ones that I can hire. And those are what we have that turnover every year for after school.
And we really need young people, because I know that a lot of nonprofits are having, like restaurants and everyone else is having a hard time hiring staff.
Yes,
so it's
yes.
a critical time.
Yes, absolutely. And because of the DOH clearances, we really need to begin hiring people at this time for the summer, because it's been taking longer than it should, as we all know.
And just know, you know, Commissioner Chong is aware of that, and we've had conversations at City Hall and with the Department of Health to please push that along.
Thank you. Any questions from Mr. Miller from DYCD?
We have Eva's hand.
Eva.
Eva's hands.
please.
I have two questions. One is, thank you for the announcement about NYC Unity Work. I'm working with organizations to try to help these type of young people, and I wonder if the program will be giving funding for other programs that is kind of aiming to help these young people, or will the program basically provide all the programming itself?
I believe it provide all the programming itself. We actually had an RFP on the street for this last year, but because of the pandemic, we had to temporarily suspend it. So they'll be providing those things, but we could always use more partners to help do this important work, and also to work with our RHY facilities. We have them in all 5 boroughs, and we could always use all the support we can get. If you'd like, I could send you my contact information and we could have a conversation offline.
Great, very much appreciated. The second question has to do with the MAP program, the Mayor's Action Plan for Neighborhood Safety. I'm glad to hear additional budget for various programs in NYCHA, and but I also saw that the MAP program didn't get funding to expand. So I'm just wondering if some of the programs that are being expanded in NYCHA will kind of take the place of what the MAP program was aiming to do before.
I know so MAP isn't all just DYCD. I know it falls under other areas. I know we do. Some of that actually gave us some of our SYEP locations and slots. It also is very important in terms of extra services at NYCHA Cornerstone centers. So that is part of the Cornerstone initiative, and those are still in place for us and expanded.
Thank you, Eva. Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank you. I want to thank DYCD for really looking innovatively and creating the learning labs. I think we learned a lot.
I tell you, I am so grateful to our nonprofit organizations. They have been doing tremendous work. If you recall last year, all of a sudden, all the money came out. A lot of nonprofits got the funding pulled out for them. And then at the very last minute, at midnight on July 1st, when the budget was adopted, it's like, no, okay, now go and do this. And then we launched practically a brand new program, Learning Labs, out of nothing. And we couldn't have done it without nonprofit organizations like yours.
No, it was thankful. And again, I think a lot of it was collaboration with DOE as well. We had a NYCHA site we were going to go into, but couldn't get it cleared. And the principal let us into school right away. So we opened one day late because we had, and we've been running it out of the school, which is.
How was your enrollment?
Our enrollment for the Learning Lab is we did over 100% enrollment. We ran the small program at the site of 35, and we had 70 kids. I think we're up to 90 now. With when the middle school came back fully, those kids now come back forward to us the other days. So it's really been good, and I think we learned a lot. And I think the Summer Rising is going to be a new way as we go forward of how we do summer learning and address the summer learning loss with kids while still keeping them engaged in fun activities. So,
and our young people are going to need all the supports they can get. Not being in school for over a year, me working from home has affected me. I can't only imagine what it does to a young person.
Yeah, no. One of the things I think has been fortunate, and the staff may have heard, the committee may have heard me say this, I brought a prevention program into the school because of the additional supports kids needed pre-COVID. And it's really a big support that we can have these prevention workers go out to the homes or work with kids and just take them in. And unfortunately, some may not feel so great because it's an OASIS program, but it's an OASIS funded program. And we have a lot of issues in this community about the oversaturation of OASIS programs. But this is one of the great prevention programs that allows, prevention workers to engage kids and where they're at in school, in the community, at their home. So we look forward to expanding those services as well. But again, we want to thank Mr. Miller for coming tonight. We look forward. We don't ask that you come every meeting, But we do ask that you come at least quarterly or every few months so that you give us some program updates.
It could be me or it could be me or Alex can attend.
Well,
Angela
it's
has her
good.
hand raised.
Who? I'm sorry.
Angela.
Angela, please.
When you were speaking, you said that the enrollment process, because of DOE's involvement with summer youth, has been elongated. But what do you mean? Like, is there certain new requirements of the children in order to be in the program? I know when you work for DOE, just in general, there's fingerprinting, background checks,
Okay,
things
so
like
this has
that.
more to deal with not DOE. This has more to deal with the DOH regulations, okay, that imposed on CBOs that we have to operate under certain conditions. So this is not, see, again, when I have a worker or any CBO has a worker that's hired to work with kids, they have to go through a screening process.
Right.
DOH, the Department of Health, implemented 1.5 years ago a new screening process, and everybody in the entire system had to be re-screened. Then COVID hit. So while a new system is being implemented, everybody that's already currently cleared has to be re-cleared. It's a longer process. COVID, like, I had to be re-cleared, and I had to be re-cleared within 7 days prior to or post my birthday for that year. So my birthday's March 8th. I went and had my fingerprints like the 10th of March, had my doctor's appointment. I went through the process, submitted the application. I still haven't gotten cleared through the DOH process. And one of my workers whose birthday was a few weeks before mine got cleared a few months ago. It's all, and then anybody new going into the process, it's just a longer process when it's been funneled to be as a result of COVID on top of being a new process. So,
Okay, thank you.
I'm not criticizing DOE's process, and I'm not so much criticizing DOH's process. It's the process by which we are living with, and then COVID hit, which created another level of process. But there were times when the governor and everybody gave certain clearances through OCFS programs so we can continue to operate until we get all this worked out. The process has begun again, and we have to clear. So if Angela, if I want to hire you, hopefully you've already been cleared where you work in a nonprofit and working with children, that it could be a smoother process than going through the whole process.
But the students don't have to go through this process. So if I came as a youth, I'm 19, I'm in college, do I have to be cleared to work at the camp?
Yes.
In that, okay.
So what we do with kids is that we put them through the process and clear them, and we allow them to work, but we cannot leave them alone with children. So they still have to be with an adult that's a worker. Now, the other thing is when I take a 16-year-old and he's working, but he's in that counselor group as a counselor, he's considered a junior counselor, and under DOH standard, he is considered a child in that group and is counted in the child to adult ratio, meaning I can't use him to suffice for an adult being in that room. I have to count him as another kid requiring adult supervision.
Okay.
And those are requirements by DYCD. One of the questions they ask is who will supervise these workers on site? And they have a ratio of how many people could supervise how many workers.
Right.
Am I incorrect, Mr. Miller? Please correct me if I said anything.
That's correct. And again, we're very carefully following health data and the Department of Health about how to successfully have a safe program. And luckily the vaccines are finally coming out for younger people. So I am very optimistic it's going to be a great summer, but time will tell.
I've had up to 100 SYEPs working on my site at times, at given times, not all in one day, but over the week at different time schedules. And we make it work, and we make sure that kids are safe. Because like I said, parents don't leave their kids with us for all these wonderful things we do and educate them. They need a safe place for their child while they're at work. And so we keep them safe, and then we provide all these wonderful things and activities as Andrew, mentioned for the summer. So as we continue, I don't think we have Dr. Christie here tonight. We did tell her that she doesn't have to come as well every meeting, but I'll just very quickly say again, We're really working collaboratively, CBOs and DOE, to really establish the summer programs and to launch the Summer Rising, and to continue to run our traditional camp programs in our non-school sites as our community centers that are through East Harlem and Harlem. I know Calaris isn't here either for CEC4 tonight. I'll just say very quickly, please, we do have our next meeting next week. We are having Eric Adams, the mayoral candidate, come and speak to the community. The week after that, we are having a town hall in relation to how we're preparing for the new school year and preparing teachers in schools. And that will be on the 25th. So I'll get that information into the chat. And again, please come out to our meetings. Tonight is the last night for the CEC voter for the parent representation. So the CEC is made up of parents of the community. Again, I am one of the parents that are as a CEC member and currently up for re-election. I'm not posting anybody to vote for me. I'm not trying to do that. Just again, I've mentioned in these meetings that I do represent that committee as well. And just really come out to our meetings through Zoom, both in the community board and the CECs. We've had greater attendance. Principals are present more. And I think we're really getting to know our community in a much larger. Is CEC 5 rep tonight, Ms. Williams? No?
I want to say that Calaris is here now, and
Calaris.
not here.
We will let Calaris speak upon Calaris, and then you can follow up. Why don't we let Jeremy go, because he's been here patiently, and then Calaris will get you on. Calaris, I've been meaning to get to you today, speak to you, but it's been hard. Jeremy, please.
How you doing, everybody? Good to see everybody here on this call. Pleasure to meet you, Andrew Miller from DYCD. I know you mentioned some of the SNL updates, which is great. I know the transition's probably been a long haul, getting it from 20 open spaces to 100 citywide. It's definitely a heavy load, but it's worth it. As far as East Harlem, Boys Club is open 5 to 9. That's Fridays and Saturdays regarding SNL. So that's the beginning of it all. And that's going to continue to happen for contract for another year, and then see where it goes from there. So that definitely pertains to this. So one thing that I definitely want to chime in, and I have a feeling that maybe Marcus will come in later, and maybe some other people, but our office is definitely paying attention to some more of obviously the rise in hate crimes. So how do we bring in more partners, gather an audience, whether it's for information or advocacy? One way right now, last year we did a poster contest for gun violence. We're going to be working on some youth initiatives for that, but this year we're going to be doing Youth Against Hate Crimes poster contest for high schoolers. And so that's going to be, I can send some information on that, but the deadline is in June. So there's a little bit more than a month. I think that's a great opportunity for a youth to get their name out in their own school, have the initiative benefit where they go. Again, our Harlem office stays open. Our Witness Aid Service Unit is available. You can make an appointment. And so that's anyone, again, that's Witness Aid Service Unit. So whether it's domestic violence, some serious topics, obviously here, domestic violence or any situation, safety planning, we're available for that, and we can get you connected. So I'll be on this call. I'm going to put my information down. And I know that there are probably some questions or some planning for the summer, but I think I was saying on a call earlier, we're willing to be out, whether it's materials to provide, but I'm glad that things are reopening, but we just have to be safe about it. But just want to see everyone out there. It's good to be here.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. Any questions for Jeremy? I gotta manage this chat better. Thank you again, Jeremy. Continue to keep that seat warm as long as you can, Jeremy. Thank you for coming. We'll just continue with the agenda, and then we'll come back to Calaris. And I also have an announcement with Children's Aid that I want to make very quickly. Eva with Harlem Careers.
Hi, everyone. So again, I just posted on the chat if you guys are welcome to follow Harlem Careers on Facebook and Instagram. Our followers continue to grow. There are lots of interesting scholarships that has been posted there. some of them has been, Angela has pointed out the East Harlem Partnership, but there's New York Times, City Limits for people who are interested in writing. Columbia has 2 scholarships. And there are scholarships about climate change, scholarships about community involvement. So I recommend you guys to take a look. Our most popular post is from Solar One. They're free training to teach young people to kind of get into the green industry, to install solar panel. And then one exciting news is the BARD Prison Initiative have created free college level education for court-involved youth. So that's a pretty popular post as well. Do take a look at it. And much more, lots of posts from our different partners from East Harlem and Greater Harlem in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Any questions for Eva about Harlem Careers? Again, started by our very own Patricia Martin, Angela Donadell, and Eva Chan, and have been really working hard to create resources for members of our community, I would say from birth to senior. So, any questions? No questions? Thank you again, Eva. So Caleris, why don't you quickly, not quickly, I just very quickly said we have a meeting next week. Eric Adams is coming. Today's the last day for the elections for the CEC, but I was not putting out there to vote for us, just informing people. And third, that we were having a town hall, and I think you can give it better justice than I was about to. So. Please, Caleris, our CEC president for CEC 4.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me again in your space. So yeah, as David mentioned, we're going to have a town hall on May 27th. The executive superintendent, Marisol Rosales, our superintendent, Christy de la Cruz, and myself, we're going to facilitate a conversation about what has worked during remote learning and what do we need to change, or what are the needs of the community for next year. And so that's slotted for 6 p.m. on May 27th. Please participate and ask your families to join us because we're really thinking about what our schools' needs are for next fall. I also want to add that in District 4, we are also engaging in a pilot program, 2 pilot programs to be specific. One is called the World Languages Program. And so we want to include some language immersion programs into our schools. We do have 8 dual language schools, but our communities felt like they wanted their children to be exposed to additional languages. Not just our dual languages are mostly focused on Spanish. Sorry, all of these messages. Our community would like to have immersion programs in French, as well as Mandarin. And so the East Harlem community, District 4 schools are working on those particular programs, and hopefully we'll implement those programs in some of our schools come fall. We'll start with the early childhood classrooms. The other thing that we're working on is on literacy instruction. And so we're having conversations with Windward. If you know about Windward, you know it's a private school on the Upper East Side that supports children that have dyslexia, which is not something that public schools do a great job at supporting. Part of it is because of the changes in Common Core and language instruction. But the other thing is that we don't really have the tools in order to diagnose children with dyslexia. And so parents have to go through neuropsych evaluations, and at times, have to hire lawyers so that they can get the tuition reimbursement for private schools. We're trying to address that need here in East Harlem, and so we're partnering with Windward. There will be a pilot program that will be implemented over the summer. We're going to do select 30 to 40 students to be part of this pilot program to see how we can better serve our children here in East Harlem. There are a couple of teachers that are going to be trained on literacy instruction, particularly the science of reading, to do this intervention. And hopefully from there, that will grow. So be on the lookout for the results of that. Again, we're trying to meet the needs of our school communities. As David said, our meeting of next week, it's not just Eric Adams, we're also going to have Maya Wiley coming at the end of the meeting. In addition, we'll have a small presentation from Lainey Hameson. Currently, there is a bill in the Senate as well as in the Assembly for smaller class sizes, which we think is incredibly critical. We learned this year that in smaller class sizes, we can support students better. There isn't, we have not seen support from the city in doing that, especially now that we're actually going to have funding. So 100% of fair student funding will be provided for all of our schools. In addition, Biden's plan has included double the funding for Title I schools. So Title I schools will have twice the money that they were given before. And so we will have schools whose budgets will reflect that. So we're really excited about all sorts of things that we can do with that additional money. With that also comes holding City Council accountable. So we are working with the Alliance for Quality Education as well as other stakeholders to propose a plan that holistically serves our children across the city. Sometimes the DOE comes with some plans that the money doesn't go directly to children. So we just want to make sure that that money comes to our school communities and that it serves the needs of our kids here in East Harlem. So Lainey will be presenting, we'll be talking about the bill. A resolution has been passed in another parent body of the Department of Education, the Chancellor's Parent Association Council. They passed a resolution supporting that bill. And so we will be engaging CECs in order to do the same. In addition, Carlos from Boys Club will be coming to talk about programming at the CEC meeting. And then we would have one more CEC meeting as the current council. As David said, elections close tonight. We've had, we're looking at the trends, and our schools that tend to have strong voices are the ones that cast the most ballots. So TAG that had 4 parents running, 171 that had 5 parents running, and Central Park East 1 that had 2 parents running were the schools that cast the most ballots. But if you're at a school that in the district, please encourage your parents to vote. They have until tonight till 11:59. And hopefully we'll continue, we hope to be able to continue to do this work. The last thing I wanted to say was thank you for those of you that engaged in conversation with me last week or 2 weeks ago. We are really trying to think about what makes sense in terms of school reopening, but last weekend, there was a group that came to our school community that was advocating for full school reopening without any restrictions, as well as, with the notion that children weren't being served 5 days, weren't receiving 5 days of instruction. That is not the case in our school community. All of our schools are providing 5-day instruction, and 63% of our families have chosen to remain fully remote. And so that's one of the reasons why we're having the town hall, to see what it is exactly and specifically that we have to do to bring families back into school buildings, but also to advocate for whatever their needs are. And so if we're still, missing devices, if the issue is that they still don't trust the amount of testing that's being done in schools, if the issue is that they don't have access to vaccines, we want to be able to engage in those conversations. We're also looking to have a town hall specifically for children. Now that the FDA has approved vaccines for children from 12 years and up, we want to make sure that kids get their questions answered. So I know that Dr. De La Cruz will be having some student advisories But we're going to have a specific town hall that is for kids, and we're going to try to coordinate with the school communities so that they can have their questions answered, and they can maybe support their parents in thinking about making that decision of whether they want to take the vaccine or not. It is expected that children from the ages of 6 to 10, hopefully they will be approved by September. So we can really think holistically about what our schools can look like in the fall and how to engage in a meaningful conversation. So I would just want to thank you all for your support, for talking to me, for supporting our constituents in our school communities, and I hope to continue to serve, as well as to make the best relationships work within our communities so that we serve our kids as best possible. So if anybody has any questions for me.
Any questions? Very
Angela's
helpful.
hand is raised.
Go ahead, Angela.
Hi, Calaris.
Hi, Mama.
Okay, so for the pilot program with Wynwood, now how is that going to work? You said that they would take 30 children, but how do you determine where those 30 children come from? Is the pilot going to be in one particular school, or are you going to reach out because there may be children with dyslexia? And are you making sure that it's going to be the children that have specifically been diagnosed with dyslexia?
Right. So because a lot of our kids don't have access to a neuropsych evaluation, we can't just say, oh, just pick the kids that have been diagnosed with dyslexia. One of the things that we talk about are children that are struggling readers, and they'll be rising 3rd graders and rising 4th graders. So kids that are currently in 2nd and 3rd grade are going to be the ones that are going to be identified. We're still figuring out with the DOE the logistics of that, right? So we do want to serve as many kids in different school communities. So one idea was, well, maybe we'll pick 2 kids from every school, so that every school has that. But then the situation is we're going against what summer rising would be, right? Which is this notion that you're going to go back to your school community and engage with your own school community and be in your own school building. So we have to figure out what the Department of Education is going to allow us to do. Then the other thing is the selection of the 3 to 4 teachers that will be taking the training, because the idea again is to train teachers in-house so that we can continue to do the work. So we've posed a lot of questions to the superintendent as well as to DOE Central. And we're hoping to be able to provide the information to parents within the next couple of weeks. This is still in the works. And so we're just trying to flesh it out as best possible. We want the most equitable decisions to be made to serve as many kids as we possibly can.
So I think that's a great idea, but I see, and just based on what you said,
yeah,
PS 171, you named 3 schools. I know those 3 schools. Each one of those 3 schools have people that write grants, parents that are actively involved. How do we begin to engage the other parents? I have a friend whose daughter had dyslexia. And you know that there are like a million different kinds of dyslexia on top of that. Now she was able to sue and get her child in one of those private schools, and she's going to college next year. But I think that, and I bring this up a lot as a parent with a child on the spectrum, I know that the public school system is not servicing these children well. And I used my voice during the pandemic because I know that those children got lost in this whole process because they barely got services when they were in school. I can't imagine that they received services in the virtual world. Also, I think people need to look into parent support systems, just an idea, because much of that information, all of that therapy needs to be reinforced. And the only way that it can be reinforced at home, what is taking on in school is by training the parents on how to work with their children so that they get best outcomes. Just my thoughts on the process. Thank you, Calaris.
I hear you. We're doing our best. We're trying to think about the best way, but the idea is to build on this. There are currently 2 proposals that have been put out for new schools to specifically serve kids with dyslexia, 1 downtown, 1 uptown. So we're really trying to do that work, but we're scratching the surface. Like, these are conversations that the DOE hasn't had intentionally in a long time.
If you need somebody that has dealt with disability systems or District 75 type situation, I am more than willing to provide another voice because I have walked this walk.
I hear you.
Okay.
Well, I think an additional challenge, even for kids that may not have all these titles and labels and stereotypes, is that all kids beginning to come back is going to be, how do we reintegrate kids back into a system and get used to? Right now, kids are sitting at a lunch table 6 feet apart from each other. When you bring the mask back, how do we help kids reintegrate socialization? Some of the kids that I've been working with in the middle school, as they've come back, there's a great anxiety. Look, there's anxiety about being a middle school kid just in general, with body and all these things that are changing. And now they're coming back and they're not certain. Will they still have the same friends? What is the relationship now? There is a lot of anxiety with kids coming back and uncertainty of how to behave, and then you bring back other kids that have challenges, behaving in the system or, within the system. And then what happens when, again, it's going to be compounded. And I think part of what's summarizing and what I hear in that is, how do we reintegrate kids that haven't been back in school in a half day of school and a half day of camp, then before we reintegrate them into a full day of school. And one of the families that I've been very concerned about, with 4 children in the elementary school at all, one's middle and the other 3 are elementary, is the challenges these kids had. Now, they've been locked at home. They have not been at school. Are they sharing devices together? I'm sure that's another challenge, right? So it's compounded in some families than just in others, right? And then kids come back and then they're not prepared. Then the kids that have been in school in a smaller setting have gotten accustomed to a different environment, and then they're shocked on them now being where they may not get the same attention. So I'm very concerned. And see, again, I hear all this stuff about expansion of social workers, but unless you put people in the ground and offices to work in those schools that are not therapists, that are not looking for bill Medicaid or insurance Medicaid, we're going to have more challenges. So
We have 2 hand raised.
Yes.
Sorry, Eva and then Marcus Johnson.
Please. And then we need to get to Marcus so he can do his presentation. So I know he's waiting there patiently. But these are really—
I just want to thank Clarice for bringing up the effort to expand the language, bilingual language, to Chinese, given the current Asian hate crime. I've been speaking to some Asian families, and I think getting help with the language barrier is one of the key priorities. Thank you.
Yeah, we're really excited. And we actually spoke to a group that the teachers were thinking about whether to give the kids the program remotely or in person and trying to navigate that. But we are speaking with a program where the teachers would be from China, will come in, will like remote in. And so we're really excited about what that could mean in terms of, the real life experiences. We really want we want it to be experiential as well. So we want to bring in the culture and the food and everything that represents to be part of that culture, not just, flashcards. So yeah, well, I'll keep you posted on that.
Thank you. Marcus?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really appreciate the work that you're doing, Clarice. One thing that comes to mind is that I have 2 nieces and they're both autistic. And so like this work is definitely very meaningful. And so I definitely see the difference as well from public school education with somebody who has autism and the resources provided to somebody who has autism and they go into private school as well. And so the resources are drastically different, and you can see it, so definitely just echoing the support for this initiative that you're doing and undertaking is really important work. And to Angela's point earlier, a lot of kids, especially now, have been lost in this system now due to COVID, because that was an issue before then too. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Services not being provided. The Department of Education has promised that there will be compensatory services. So definitely, whichever parents, that are part of the public school system where they feel like their services have not been provided, they need to come to their IEP meetings and demand that those services be provided. And so we're definitely the front and center students with IEP. My son has an IEP as well. And so we want to make sure that all of our students are being served, particularly those that have, their families have made certain decisions. It's hard for some of our kids that have learning differences to go into a school building and know that every week they're going to be tested and they don't have support, or not have all of those services provided for them. Parents have said, I would rather my kid be home safe than have them go through certain stressors of what it's like to be a kid in a school building during COVID. So we do want to make sure that kids are provided that. And then the kids that are supposed to be part of the system until the age of 21, that are aging out of the system, they've been given an additional year as well. And if we need to advocate for that additional year for, however long, then that's what we need to put front and center to make sure that our kids get the services that they deserve.
So I don't know if everybody does know, and thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Calaris. A couple of years ago, and it just recently opened, the Cook Institute, the Cook School, just recently opened on 114th and Madison Avenue, which is a special needs school. And they came before the community, not before they got the space, but they came to the community afterwards. And while they were giving their presentation, we were giving them a little of our community CB11, like, well, you didn't really come and tell us. And then I'm looking through the brochure and I see my nephew, and my nephew actually goes to the school. And I didn't make the connection until I was sitting in a board meeting and made that connection. So we do have a wonderful resource to address particularly kids with severe disabilities in our community. And one of the agreements that they made with the city, and this is where we wish we would have been involved, is that they agreed as part of their entrance enrollment for that year to 10% of it would go to living in NYCHA, in the NYCHA facility. Now, if we would have known ahead of time, we would have advocated for it to have been in the Harlem, East Harlem area, as opposed to citywide NYCHA. But I think we need to invite them back. Ms. Matias is the community affairs person. She's been here several times and has attended our meetings. She attends the consortium meetings on a regular basis. And we should ask for an update of the school because they have opened. I know there has been some delays because of COVID, but it is actually an excellent resource. My nephew that has various different special needs and on the spectrum as well has done great being in that school. The directors, Michael, I forget Michael's last name at the moment, and the other escaped me.
Taramini.
Yes, Taramini. And they started at in East Harlem schools and created this school and brought it back to East Harlem. And if you notice, it's a beautiful building on Madison and 114th. But I think we need to make sure that 10%, which is about 30 to 40 kids they bring in a year, which means we get 3 to 4 spots a year. We need to make sure at least two of those spots are going to East Harlem youth that could benefit from this. The school is 40, 50, 60,000 a year. We need to make sure our children have that opportunity. They need it the most. So, again, disclosure, my nephew goes to the school and is doing great there. Can't ask for more. So, but without
I have to jump off real quick, but I did want to add that I also have a relationship with Francis, who's one of the directors, and you're right. He was a River East teacher under Sid Massey. And so if we need to put a little bit of fire under there, y'all let me know because we're ready.
Well, I think first we need to invite them back and have a discussion. and see how we can maximize the opportunity for families living in Harlem and East Harlem. But, you know, as we segue, and the previous chair called me, and we made a connection one day, a couple weeks ago, and Eva sent me an email, and both introducing the same young man, Marcus Johnson, to engage, to see how we can support and how he can also support the community, which he's already doing. So from the Mayor's Action Plan program, we do have Marcus Johnson. So Marcus, the floor is yours, and thank you for attending.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. Glad to be here. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right. So good evening, everybody. My name is Marcus Johnson. I'm the program manager for Wagner Houses. And so what I'm going to go through today is our outreach slides for when we're having, when we're basically enrolling new people into our resident stakeholder team. So again, I work with, so we have a lot of different acronyms. There's a lot of different organization names, like umbrellas. So I work with MAP, right? And so that's the Mayor's Action Plan for Neighborhood Safety. And we have a joint initiative. So I really work for the Center for Court Innovation. And in the Center for Court Innovation, I work for the department which is the Neighborhood Safety Initiative. And so the Neighborhood Safety Initiative came together with MOCJ to form MAP. And in this, we created stakeholder teams throughout 15 sites, which the overall goal is to reduce crime within these specific NYCHA developments. So as many of you may know, like there's around like 320 or so like NYCHA developments. And so the mayor accounted for the 15 most violent developments, and that basically they attributed for 25% of the violent crime that was going on all throughout these NYCHA developments. And so again, my development that I'm working in is Wagner Houses. I'm born and raised in Harlem. My family born and raised in Wagner. So I'm walking distance from Wagner. And so it's just a lot of close ties. It's definitely great energy being in the neighborhood every day. But there's also a lot of work that needs to be done. And I love working with the residents and doing what we do. And so as I go through the slides, I'll explain in a little bit more detail on what we do as a team. So again, I work with the Neighborhood Safety Initiative, and we have resident stakeholder teams that consist of about like 15 residents, and that's a very diverse group of youth, seniors, and adults. And so we want to have a diverse perspectives when bringing ideas into like to the group. And so we can just make sure that we're kind of hearing all sides of the spectrum when we're like talking about issues in the community. So we have resident-driven priority areas. Our priority areas are health and wellness, safety and justice, and youth development. And so we work with local organizations all the time in effectively executing these resident-driven priority areas. And so we ask residents to kind of come in and just get engaged and get involved in the community. So it's such a great platform to just learn and be in the know. I think a lot of the time people just say like, they don't know how to get engaged in the community, but when they come a part of the team, they start to see like, there's like a lot of information flowing around. There's like so much that is going on. And then it's more so like, all right, they find their niche, they find out like what they're passionate about. And then we delegate the respective roles to the team so they can, you know, continue to fulfill that passion and become more leaders in the community. So like to even like sum up this whole thing about the goal of what the resident stakeholder team is really to help the residents be, you know, the community organizers. I feel that this work can be done without us. They are truly the experts in their community. It's just a matter of kind of us pulling together all of the resources, having them become aware of the resources and how to make this all kind of happen. So this is the platform we set with the Neighborhood Safety Initiative. So our overall goals are to, again, like influence public policy. We work with, again, MOCJ. And so with that, we speak with a multitude of city agencies in amplifying the resident voices and having concerns heard. So we also work with the community in a much deeper level by working with the resident associations, the tenant associations, property management, and all kinds of like local groups, just to really, again, deepen the resident networks and then also to amplify them too. And so, and then one thing that we do that has been very effective in the community is that we transform public spaces into safe public spaces. So the idea is to crime prevention through environmental design. So if people are interacting with the community in a much different, in a much more like respectful way, then the idea is that, you know, they will also take that behavior within the household, and then it's a whole ecosystem of good, positive behaviors happening based on how they interact with the community. So it's changing the mentality, which is a very difficult task, but it's done through us revitalizing our green space in the community. So our green space was an area in which it's where a lot of anti-social activity was happening. And it was just a place that a lot of crime was going on. And the project that initially happened is we've revitalized this space to become essentially a patio area in which there's benches, there's a stage, and there's just it's just a nice communal area for people to just sit down and just relax and build community. And this unfortunately got finalized at the start of COVID. And so we wanted to have a really big ribbon cutting, but you know, we couldn't due to COVID, but it's also served as such a monumental place because, you know, social distancing, and it's just been a great place for us to get activated and to have partners come in to the community to launch the respective initiatives. So again, we're transforming public spaces and activating them to be used for positive ventures like food distributions, like health screenings, like youth programming, like having, you know, playing like tennis, football, you know, like all types of activity we want to have at our spaces. So yeah, and who we are and what we do. We are facilitators of dialogue and action. So we work with the resident teams to really facilitate what they would like to see in the community. So we again come to platforms like this, in which we talk about these resident-driven issues. We work with the city agencies to amplify their voices on a city agency level. And we also share resources on how to properly organize and implement the change they would like to see. So I'm not sure if you can see, but these are some pictures at some of our events. And this is all throughout the city. Let me move this to the side for myself. Okay, so again, we work with this is like the average range of residents of our stakeholder teams. So we have a breakdown of youth of 16 to 21, seniors 55 and up, and then adults 22 to 54. And so this is also the breakdown of our partner groups. So we work with city agencies, as I mentioned, local community-based organizations. Of course, we work with NYCHA and we work with the NCOs as well. And so this is our stakeholder team. So this is actually at our local stat event. This was a very, very, very big event in which we went out to the community and we spoke to them about like what they would like to do with $30,000. And that's actually what I would like to speak to you about in a little bit more detail. It's what the community ended up deciding on what they would like to do. So we had this participatory budgeting process in which, again, the community said we went out into the community, said like, what are your ideas about what you'd like to do with this money? We gathered that up, came up with a list of 5, and then had the community, went back out into the community to then have them vote on those ideas. And the idea that the community ended up voting on is an entrepreneurship program. And I'll talk about that quickly at the end. And so we work with organizations to, like, we have meetings, I would say bi-weekly, sometimes weekly, depending on priorities in a given month. But we invite organizations to come in to speak to the residents and teach them, you know, the respective skills, also to share resources. And our team is great at, I guess, really communicating the resources to the residents and really creating that buy-in with the community and the nonprofits. So they are great facilitators of the information that's going on in the community. So we access project funds, we build and execute solutions, and they also get paid. So we also think it's important that the residents get paid for their time. It's not much. We would love to pay them a lot more, but we also want them to understand that their time is valuable and it's appreciated. And so over here is a list, well, it's pictures of various activities we've hosted. Again, this is our local stat event at the bottom left. We've hosted plenty of food distributions. As you can see on the top left, we have like a lot of like giant chessboards. We have life size, what is it? Not Monopoly. I think it actually might be Monopoly. Like we have life size, like of all types of board games like that, again, to just make our events really fun and engaging to get the community out. And we host a lot of sports events as well. And so this is kind of just speaking to, in terms of this picture, where the residents have an opportunity to voice their concerns on a much larger level to city agency officials about like what's going on throughout the city that's impacting all NYCHA residents. So again, it's a great platform for residents to really speak truth to power around what's going on in the community and have their voices heard. My apologies for the background noise. And then this right here is our green space. So this is it's in like somewhat, this is right before COVID. This is crazy, time flew. But yeah, this was it in its development, and it came such a long way. It really has. And this provides a little bit more data on the breakdown of residents and our analysis on the COVID-19 assessment. We were doing a lot of food distributions throughout the COVID pandemic, and we were going out into the community and really getting a sense of what the needs were in the community. And so we also gathered so much data of what resident needs are, and then also created a great contact database in which we have a text blast list of about like 600 or so residents that we can instantly get in contact with through our network. And so, yeah, this is just some other programs that we've had. We had a Be-Lit event where it was like a silent disco event, again, sports activities, placemaking in which we've built gardens. This is career opportunities. This is a entrepreneurship program. This is a coding program that was going on. And so this is, again, just a range of different things that we've activated throughout our 15 sites in the 5 boroughs. And yeah, I would, and that's the bulk of our work. And so, in speaking about like what's next, we are currently working on a entrepreneurship program that's set to launch in June 15th. And this is what the $30,000 is being allocated for. The community voted on this, and what's going to happen is that for the age ranges of 16 to 24, youth will have an opportunity to collectively work on a business plan, and that business plan will also be, they can develop a prototype, and at the end of the program, they'll actually have the opportunity to showcase their work to the community, and then also sell that product to the community, and then whatever profits or revenue that gets generated from that, that's actually up to them for what they would like to do with it. We are working with our vendor is going to be Progress Playbook. They have done this curriculum a multitude of times. They're expert in this space. And yeah, so we're gathering the youth together to really execute on what they would like to do in the community in the entrepreneurial sense. And so definitely would like the support of, the community to, one, spread the message, but also to come into our like pivotal events. We're going to be having a resource fair on July 22nd. And on July 22nd, it'll be a great opportunity for youth to kind of come out in East Harlem, to take advantage of the different resources that partners are providing. We're inviting, of course, the local community-based organizations. We want to have it to be fun as well. So again, to get them to come out, we're going to be having distributions of like sneakers and food. So it's going to be a real fun event. And then yeah, so that's on July 22nd. But then on September 1st will be our showcase event. And so that's when we'll have the youth pitch their business plans to the community. And then on top of that, they'll have a great, we'll also invite Wagner entrepreneurs to come out to present their local products as well to the community too. So this is some great things that we're planning. We are hosting so many things over the summer outside of this. There's so much more that we do. Like there's just a lot going on this summer. And I'll just wrap it up with this, is just that, like, and just to give you a hint of what we're also working on and the kind of the work that we do. So Jeremy mentioned earlier around safety and how we're expanding, and just also want to like place emphasis on, of course, like safety in the community. So we are planning a safety fair for next Friday, May 21st, and it's really due to like a response in the recent violence that kind of went on in the community, where an Asian man from Wagner was brutally assaulted on 125th and 3rd Avenue. And the community is now like coming together as a response, and we want to create some ongoing existing supports to really combat the violence that's going on in the community. So we also ask that partners come out to this event too, to support and express their solidarity to stop the violence, but also to, again, like come together about what existing resources that we can promote to the community too. So I'll stop there. If there's any questions, I know I said a lot, but also willing to connect with people after to build. But thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. That was very informative. One quick question I'll leave to afterwards is, how many of these MAP programs are actually in Harlem and East Harlem that we should be making sure being used to the fullest, right? And I'm really glad that we made this connection, because I think a lot of this work that we're doing is really overlapping. Like, one of the things that we're going to mention in Old Business, and Xavier won't be here tonight, is that we're planning to do a youth symposium and bringing youth together, where youth will facilitate, teen youth will facilitate to younger youth and their peers. And again, using some of our existing community resources, like the DA Hub grant that Jeremy's office institutes through Union Settlement, which has 20 community partners working together to address the needs of youth. Connecting with y'all around these events, we definitely should be part of this and supporting it and bringing kids out. And also, whatever we can to in terms of other resources. Again, we will be there as a resource available to families in East Harlem as well. But we should have a dialogue outside of this. So I would love to sit down with you and, a few of the members and Carly, and really see how the board and the committee could really support the work that you're doing in this MAP program. And I know Hector, and I know Scan is up there as well, Scan Harbor, doing a lot of work. Again, we all out there fighting the same fight. And I think the more we can collaborate and make whatever little pieces we do on larger, right? So that we incorporate and that we show unity as a community. I mean, I love the work you're doing, because getting people out invested in the community is what changes the community, right? Not just allowing somebody else to come in and change it, which will happen unless we take a, active stand. So are there other questions by members? And where are the other MAP programs in Harlem and East Harlem? I think Forster, right? I mean, King Towers, right? They have one.
No, unfortunately not, so really in terms of MAP, Wagner is the only East Harlem location. We also
Wow.
have sites in Harlem. We have St. Nicholas and Polo Grounds, but through a separate grant called the BJA grant, which is still like a part of the MAP family, but they're in Jefferson and Johnson. So, but we do collaboratively work together. The organizer who's spearheading that work, his name is Eugene Rodriguez. And so, again, we work with, because as many of you may know, like there's like that like history of violence going on between those three communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so now like there's some intentional work going around about how we can kind of bridge the gaps in between the communities. And yeah, but like also like some of the issues that we're working on too, you know, with Eva and others is really combating the isolation going on in the community through the language barriers and through you know, whether it's from the Asian population, whether it's from the Latino population, and just being like very consistent about how we're coming out in the community, because it could be a turnoff, you know, where when you only seeing flyers in English, it just means that simply that information isn't for you, you know? And so just
we're not valued, right? I mean, that's the other piece of it. I'm not valued.
Yeah. So like to combat against that, it's you know, by really being intentional around having resources afforded to everyone in the community.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes,
Board
we have
members,
questions from Rev Brown and then Angela.
Hi, Marcus, thank you so much for your presentation. You know, the more I think about what's happening in East Harlem, contrary to popular opinion, we have a lot of really good resources. And it's when we come together and share what it is that's being done, we can find intersections for collaboration. I want to applaud you and all your team, because I know that you don't do it alone, because you have a quite comprehensive programming. And I just hope that when we have this conversation with you, that we can truly find ways in which to collaborate. I'm a firm believer that we go out into the community instead of the community coming into us. Same thing with church. I believe going out the doors is a better way to get engaged. And I just want to find ways in which we can support the work that you do and bring to the community another level of advocacy by participating in the community board. So I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Was it Angela next? Angela, did you have a question?
Yes, I'm coming. Okay,
Okay.
one, Mr. Johnson, I dropped my email into the chat because I really need to speak to you. Now, the other things are, you only talked about NYCHA developments, but some of the violence that takes place is because of the territorialism in those particular communities. And you're not, you said you reached out to other resident associations, but there are other large developments that are located in these communities that you might want to begin to address. I had another question about what type of programming, but you actually answered it in your presentation. This is a really great idea, but you really got to connect into the other resources that are comparable to yours. And you really need to connect better in the community, because although there's violence within the context of that complex, there's other outside violence that takes place. If I live across the street and I want to cut through one of those developments to get where I'm going quicker, I could get attacked because they're very territorial.
Yeah, like,
and I do this and I have a really good listserv, and I think you and I should have a conversation.
yeah, 100%.
Soon.
Yeah, like,
Okay.
because one thing that I would love to say is that I actually came off another meeting. I was saying this is like, one thing about nonprofits is that I've been seeing is that we're all doing a lot of great work, but unfortunately, sometimes that work is being done in silos. And so a lot of it is really about coming to places like this, just talking about like what we're doing, and just because about like bridging those gaps, right? Bridging those gaps between community-based organizations, and then and making sure that it's not like a top-down approach where it's like we're on the same page and let's bring it to the community, but like, you know, really giving the community a lot of ownership about what's going on too.
Absolutely.
And so that's really where I'm about. Like, and sometimes I get some flack for it, but I say all the time is that, you know, this is the residents. Like, you know, like I have the team really lead this, and I just support them in doing what they do every day.
And many of the people, so I was looking at the people in your presentation, some of which I sit on other committees with, because they are actively participating in other resident-driven initiatives.
Yes.
In the community. There was one more thing. See, I'm old, I forgot it. So I'll just
You know what, Angela, I think this kind of goes to, like, you know, what Jason's always asking is that we advocate for more resources. You know,
Exactly.
let's say we have too many. Let's better use the resources. Let's better have them operate so that they're more effective, right?
So this is the one thing that I believe, which is going to be very beneficial to you, that came out of COVID. COVID took us out our silos and put us all in a room together, because we all knew that we collectively needed to address what was going on. I see you smiling, David, because it definitely came up in the consortium. And so I have found over this last year, I have better connected to other agencies, and we've been doing cross-referring and providing resources. So somebody would call me and I'm going to connect them to the ones that I have. And it actually has been working out. I see it growing in capacity. And that was the one positive thing that COVID brought to us. It took us out of our particular silos and made us have to come together as a collective in order to address the needs of the community that we all love and serve.
And as we continue, are there other questions? Because, you know, again, we're going to have to learn to live with both of these systems. And I can't really wait to get back into rooms with some of the people I haven't seen for a while. And I'm out in the community every day. I go and work out of a school and a community center, right? But again, I think we have to take the best of what we learned from this, because there are a lot of people that are at disadvantage in this Zoom world. And many of them are our kids in our schools, you know, so while we found better ways to communicate, sometimes I miss those conversations where, you know what, let me speak to Marcus a few minutes at the end of the meeting and we could connect on some little thing that sparked something else or sparked something else, right? And that, you know, I haven't seen Carly and we've gotten together more and working in this way, which is good, but I hope that we continue when we go live and making those connections when we don't. So let's take the best of this, but also let's get back to being in a room and sharing space. Because I think, you know, we are humans, we are social, but I'd rather not be looking at a screen. Like, I'm wearing glasses all day long. I don't wear glasses, but I got to wear screen because my eyes, right? And again, that's changing how my vision may be. We don't know the effects. I need to see people. Some of y'all I know well, some of y'all are new to the board and I haven't met personally. One of the greatest things is I was in a meeting and Art, who I still didn't recognize because of a mask, walked over and introduced himself. And it was nice seeing him and meeting him live. So I can't wait till we get back to live. So we'll get out to some of those events, Marcus. Let's, you know, as I think a few members kind of want to sit down and have further conversation, maybe we can set up a time with us as a smaller committee members and, you know, reach out and see how we can be more helpful.
We do have one more question from Eva.
Eva, please.
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate to the CB11 board member that our budget request to expand the MAP program to beyond the Wagner House has been declined. So it is a budget item that will be discussed in the budget committee, I believe, on Thursday. And I really urge all of us to help kind of advocate for the program, because as Angela said, you know, this program really can benefit other housing development as well.
Well, you know, again, I think I'm going to go back to what we said as some of our goals is how do we better advocate? How do we create resolutions, write letters of support for these particular programs to expand? And although something was knocked down in the budget, and Eva, I know you're going to see a lot of our things always get knocked down in the budget process. Most things don't get through that we ask for. But again, I think we have to be diligent and continue to for change. Look, last year, we were crying that there were no SYEP spots. And even when they gave out a few thousand, we're back to 70 and 75 this year. That's because people spoke up, right? It's not just because money came. Those slots were really being discussed as being here before Biden put his plan through, right? So again, we have to take a stance. And maybe that's one of the next steps we make after this meeting is getting together when we meet with Marcus, getting more information so we can maybe write a resolution and pass it around. Because I'm sure the other communities that have the map sites in them are benefiting from them being there. I mean, just seeing how people engage in activities in their community is what makes a community enriched, right? You don't have to have a lot of money to be an enriched community, although it helps, you know, so.
Yeah.
I've been to their events, are really well run. The managers are great, coordinators are great. So I really hope that CB11, all of you can write a resolution, or I don't know what is the method to help advocate for this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcus, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you everybody for the time. Thank you for your interest. And I really look forward to connecting with each of you and to having that smaller meeting as well. So thank you. And yeah, I'll be here for the remainder of the meeting too.
Thank you. Thank you. And we made Mr. Rivera Cash wait patiently as well. You know, we run long meetings. So if you think you're getting in here and out in an hour, it really doesn't happen. And it's gotten a little longer with COVID. But anyway, without further ado, we have from Project Yes, Mr. Dennis Rivera Cash. The floor is yours. Thank you, young man.
Yeah, it's completely okay. Yeah, I understand a lot of folks are trying to like collaborate virtually. So, you know, it's completely fine. So I'll just share my screen. 1 second. All right, just make it larger. All right, so my name is Dennis Rivera Cash. You know, I'm incredibly appreciative to be here and just kind of share more information about what's going on at NYU. And so Project Yes is a study that's based out of the NYU Roy Myers College of Nursing. A lot of our work is targeting Upper Manhattan and the South Bronx, and we're all the way downtown Manhattan. So we are trying to collaborate more with community-based organizations that are on the ground working with our target population. And one of the ways in which we're trying to do that is trying to virtually connect with community spaces, community organizations, and kind of just share what's going on with what we're doing, some of our research. Sometimes research is kind of like, you know, tucked behind ivory towers. What we're trying to do is make our information more accessible as we conduct our work. And so I will jump right into the presentation. And so a little bit about the principal investigator. Her name is Dr. Lanier, and she's an assistant professor at the NYU Roy Myers College of Nursing. She's a developmental psychologist by training, whose research broadly centers on health promotion and disease prevention in communities of color, with a special focus on preventing HIV and sexually transmitted infections among Black and Latinx youth. And so a brief study overview. Project Yes, which stands for Youth Engaging in Healthy and Safe Sex, is a federally funded project supported through the Minority HIV/AIDS Research Initiative of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Our target populations include young Black and Latinx youth between the ages of 14 and 24. And these groups are disproportionately burdened by HIV, as they account for 55% and 23% of youth living with a diagnosis of HIV. Our target neighborhoods for our study, like I mentioned earlier, is the South Bronx and Upper Manhattan. And this is because these particular regions are geographic areas of HIV vulnerability in comparison to other regions and boroughs in New York City. And so we want to target our intervention for these two locations. Upper Manhattan, including Washington Heights and Harlem. And so these are our three main study aims of our study. So aim number one, to assess the feasibility of recruiting and retaining Black and Latinx couples in HIV prevention research. Aim two, to characterize heterosexual Black and Latinx couples' relationship dynamics, sexual behaviors, and use of HIV prevention methods. And so by HIV prevention methods, we're focusing on exploring four in particular. So correct condom use, HIV testing and linkage to care, STI screening and treatment, and PrEP initiation and adherence. Our third aim is to design a scalable, culturally tailored, and age-appropriate couples-focused HIV behavioral intervention to enhance uptake of HIV prevention methods among our target population and geographic areas of HIV vulnerability. And so a lot of HIV prevention interventions that are out there and that are suggested by the CDC operate on an individual level. So they address individual HIV risk determinants. What our intervention is trying to innovate and do is target the couple itself and try to create an intervention that promotes healthy relationships and reduces sexual risk behavior. And so this is kind of our study design. We use qualitative and quantitative research methods to guide our work. So it's 4 years, our project spans 4 years. And so we've already completed phase 1, which is conducting individual and dyadic qualitative interviews with our study population. We're currently in phase 2. We're administering a 6-month prospective quantitative study. And so we're right now trying to enroll about 200. We've already enrolled 100 couples into the study. And this is to try to get a sense of their sexual history, sexual practices, attitudes towards different HIV prevention methods. And then phase 3, which is forthcoming, is to planning to design and pilot test our couples focused HIV prevention intervention with feedback from youth and community-based organizations working in our target neighborhoods. And so due to COVID-19, a lot of things have changed on our end. A lot of what we did before prior was completely in person. So interacting with community partners, interacting with study participants was in person. We had to pause and take some time to kind of like readjust ourselves, reconceptualize our research, our study operations. So now, fortunately, everything's virtual, safe. We're able to kind of invite young people into the study and do it in a way that safeguards their health. And so we're doing it in accordance with New York City and NYU social distancing guidelines. And that definitely took a lot of time on our end to kind of like, to figure out. But what we've noticed so far is due to the pandemic, adolescent young adults have altered their romantic and sexual behavior to accommodate social distancing measures. So sexual encounters have altered, their use of condoms, the ways in which they seek HIV and STI testing have altered. And we've incorporated a COVID-19 section in our phase 2 quantitative survey to capture that change. And so hopefully by the end of phase 2, we'll get a more fuller comprehensive sense of how the pandemic impacted romantic relationships in regards to sexual behavior and practices and their use of HIV prevention methods. And so some of the strategies that we've done so far in this pandemic moment is kind of grow our social media presence. And so we've kind of seen an increase in Instagram engagement. We've done paid Instagram promotions, just trying to target our population. We've implemented more email blasts to community-based organizations working in our target neighborhoods, and as well as reaching out to schools, and we're growing community partnerships as well. And so again, currently we are still in phase 2. We are looking to enroll more young people into this study. We kind of believe in the importance of our project. We want it to be, culturally tailored. So the more young people come in and participate in the study, the more specific and targeted our intervention becomes. And like I mentioned, we are transitioning to the 3rd phase in the next couple of months. And so we ideally would love to have as much young people participate in our phase 2 window, so we can make sure that's actually meeting the needs of young people in South Bronx and East Harlem. And so this on the right is our study recruitment flyer. It kind of has like concise information about our study. And so we share this flyer with our potential study participants as well as community organizations. So for young people that are eligible to join, they receive up to $75 in either cash or Amazon gift cards. But more importantly, they have an opportunity to participate in community-based work and research. They get an opportunity to share their voices about, healthy relationships, their own perspective around sexual health. And then they have their, voice heard and have a hand in developing a program for their own community. We have a QR code here that's located on the form, so folks can easily just scan the code, fill out an eligibility form and see if they're eligible, as well as get more information about the study. So I know I said a lot, that's kind of what our study is in a nutshell. And here are some references, and thank you. Does anyone have any questions or want me to clarify anything?
We have a raised hand from Angela Donendale.
Angela, please go ahead. I was getting to the mute.
I'm hot tonight. What can I tell you? What ages? You put teens,
So
young adults,
14, I thought.
13, 14, 15?
So teenagers and young adults. On the first slide, I had the eligibility, so 14 to 24.
14 to 24.
14 to 24. So we don't necessarily reveal our eligibility criteria to the young people themselves. We just say teenagers and young adults.
Okay.
Because then everybody magically is eligible when we tell them the actual ages that are, makes them eligible to participate. So, but for community-based organizations that we're hoping to partner with, we let them know the age requirements. So yeah, so 14 to 24.
Why that? Why that? Why that? Like,
so what we've noticed is that young people in that age demographic are particularly at risk for HIV infection. And so we're trying to get a sense of how young people in this age demographic interact with one another, so we could develop a program that is age appropriate. If we developed a program that was like for people that was in their older 20s, then it wouldn't necessarily meet the needs of teenagers and people in their early 20s. And so that's why we're trying to recruit young people from those age demographics into the study.
and you don't need parental consent?
That's a good question. We don't need parental consent for them to participate in this study. We do encourage them to share the study information with their parents, but they don't necessarily need parental consent to participate.
See, when you go through CBOs, that sometimes can be a challenge because it's the connection of the CBO, and we cannot engage children in an agreement with an outside. I know I go through this because again, like I run Children's Aid, I have kids from Head Start through 18, 19. And, I do various different studies with them. I do make sure the kids get paid for their thing. But again, parents have to know and agree to this and sign it.
That's fine. That's completely fine. That's an option available. Right. So that's completely fine if people want to be, share the information with their study. That's not a barrier at all. So,
and part of it is just we like to partner with.
Of course, yeah, that's not, yeah, of course.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I do all those sex ed groups, and parents like, don't put my child in it. But then, that child may be the one that needs it, right? And that's what we want to make sure, that all kids have information to make healthy decisions and make healthy choices. Are there other questions, Angela? Did you have something else, or the other? I'd be real interested to find out what are how we've changed maybe our sexual relations. Because on 1010 Wins, I heard the other day where they said, I think children being born or up a little, or I forget what it was, but they said a lot of that was pre-COVID where they were pregnant. They're waiting to see what the data is going back 9 months. And if it's been like what you're saying, maybe a different way of engaging.
Yeah, the pandemic has for sure changed a lot of things in people's lives, not just work, but like people's just interaction with their own partners, their family members. We're definitely seeing that when we interact with our participants. So yeah, you're right. The data should be interesting to see.
Thank you. We'll look for you to come back when you can get some results.
Yeah, right, for sure. Thank you.
Information. Are there any other questions, Carly? I'm sorry, I didn't even have the chat up. So, nope. Participants. Well, thank you so much, Dennis, and thank you to both our presenters tonight, Dennis and Marcus. Our announcements and updates have gotten longer, so again, the presentations get kind of pushed. But I think it's also good for you to hear some of the stuff that's going on in our community that locally affects this, those common things of the committee. We do have to go next to our budget, and I'm going to really pass that over to Carly. I mean, as we all learn, and more, this becomes a major focus, the budget review process and what's happening, and really should determine our work as we go forward and whether we advocate, put aside, or prioritize different areas that need our attention. So Carly, the floor is yours. And I will.
Thank you, David. Yeah, so as you might know, the executive budget was released in the end of April. We submitted these requests at the end of October, and we reviewed the preliminary budget. We created the community board passed a statement on the preliminary budget, and now 2 months later, this budget is the response to or the revised preliminary budget, and it will be voted on in June. The community board does not have a formal role in this process, but community boards are encouraged to testify. So excuse me, I'm sorry, it has been a long night. So community boards are encouraged to testify at the public hearing on the executive budget. It's happening on May 25th. And really what we're gonna do here tonight is just, I'm gonna review some budget highlights, some general budget highlights that we heard a bit about from DYCD and from DOE and Claris from CEC before. And then I'm gonna go into our specific requests, but I'm not gonna read them out like we've done previously. I just summarized, like what's been funded, what's not funded, what's still uncertain. And then I want to hear from you. Again, public testimony is not mandatory, but if there are certain issues that you want to continue to push, the committee is permitted to submit testimony. It does not need to go to the full board for a vote if the content of the public testimony falls within the parameters of previous positions that have been taken, or previous, or our current statement of district needs and budget requests that have been passed. But if it does expand upon any of those positions, then it does need to go to full board for a vote. So without further ado, just talk a little bit about these budget highlights. So Mayor de Blasio's Recovery for All budget is really, there's a lot going on with youth in this budget. So I'm just gonna read it out. So as it was stated earlier, we've received the Fair Student Funding, the full, I think it was like 1.1 billion. It's gonna be phased in over 3 years. No, just give me one moment. I just need to get my dog out of here because she's driving me a little crazy.
So very quickly, we could see some of the things we've advocated for and wrote resolutions are coming through, such as the Fair Student Funding. Thank you, Carly. Continue.
I'm so sorry.
No,
I don't know if you heard that noise in the background, but I couldn't focus. All right. So yeah. So Fair Student Funding, $600 million is going to come in for fiscal year 2022. Funding is going to be used at the principal's discretion. So I am interested to know what the priorities are of our principals. And I think that's where I guess the CECs can be useful. So moving forward, we have the universal free 3K for all, and that's funded. It's so on the budget summary, it said 377 million in fiscal year 2022, but the mayor's message said 334 million in fiscal year 22, and that's a significant enough difference. So that's why I have a little comment there, because I'm trying to figure that out. 3K will be available for every family by September 2023. And then we have the intensive academic recovery for every student, 500 million in fiscal year 2022. Establish baselines with assessment data, core ELA and math instruction, tutoring, and teacher planning time. They're also funding information technology support, 155 million in fiscal year 22. I am a little bit confused by what this is, which is why I commented a question mark on it. Hold schools harmless on mid-year adjustment, 130 million fiscal year. I meant to write 22 here. So if someone can speak to that, maybe after I review this, that would be great, because I tried to do some research about it before the meeting, and I just didn't get very far. Expansion of restorative justice for social emotional learning at middle and high schools, 12 million in fiscal year 22. 500 social workers will be added in total to schools, including the restoration of 60 single shepherd social workers. So there's also a $10 million investment to expand to establish community schools in every district. And it's going to expand from 266 to 406. And then the Public Schools Athletic League expansion, 6 million in fiscal year 22. That's access to sports programming across the city for high school students, focusing on schools with greatest needs. Strengthen special education services, $236 million in fiscal year 22. So this has to do, so they're gonna provide services that help students make up work that was missed during the pandemic. It also includes counseling, physical and speech therapy. Early childhood special education has been expanded by $22 million in fiscal year 2022. I just realized this might be a little small for some people, so I'm going to make it larger. Sorry about that. And then DYCD, they mentioned earlier the summer rising for up to 190,000 students this summer. That's going to cost, that is projected to cost $200 million in fiscal year 22. An additional 5,000 CUNY SYEP slots for a total of 75,000 slots. That's an additional $13 million for a total investment of $167 million in fiscal year 22. There's going to be 2 new sites and some more youth employment with Cure Violence. That's getting $27 million. And then there's this initiative called Advance Peace. I'm not sure which agency that's under. This is just under like the general summary. That program is going to connect mentors with at-risk youth, $6 million in fiscal year 22. And then Saturday Night Lights, we heard about that earlier, expand 100 locations. That's receiving an additional $7 million. And then Fair Futures, it's that's under ACS. That provides coaching and tutoring for foster care children. And there's a few more programs under ACS that were funded that they're really just, expanded upon. I don't think there's any new initiatives. I did not have the time to add them, but that's all in the mayor's message that I sent you last week. And before we move on to our individual budget requests, I'm happy to hear any questions or concerns, or if anyone knows if anyone can explain what the whole school's harmless thing is.
Well, it's interesting because in a meeting today, they didn't say they had 190 slots for summer rising. It was more like 60,000 to 80,000.
Interesting. So I'm wondering how much of the mayor's presentation and executive summary of his executive budget, I wonder how much of it, like there are a few discrepancies, and maybe that's one of them. So that's good to know, and I'll look for that in the budget when I read it a little bit more carefully.
Is that Good Shepherd or Single Shepherd? Because the agency is Good Shepherd. Or is that maybe a special program? That's interesting. I meant, so you could just ask for clarification.
Mm-hmm. So I have 2 hands raised, Eva and then Robert.
Eva and then Robert. Eva.
My question has to do with the president's announcement of expanding early childhood education. Do we think that how would that really benefit us eventually? I'm sure it's not in this budget yet.
So I know, so I was reading about the budget, and a lot of the funding or the increased funding for these programs happened because of the federal, like the influx of federal dollars. So if that's accounted for here, then maybe we will get, more funding for that. I will say that there, I feel like I read something. I feel like I read about. I read in the DOE section that they were funding these programs, or a number of these programs with federal money. But thank you for flagging that. I think that's something to keep track of. Okay, Robert, if you want to ask your question, and then after Robert, then Angela.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Carly. It actually is not a question. So the whole school's harmless. I run a network of charter schools. So whole school's harmless are policies that allow a school district to calculate school funding at the enrollment level before the pandemic happened. So what it does is for schools who've had enrollment declines or schools who've seen shifts in their enrollment, it allows them to keep their funding at the higher level of the year previous to the pandemic starting. So the mid-year adjustment of 130 million was the announcement made, this was a couple of weeks ago, that schools would be reallocated funding back to their previous enrollment levels. So that's what whole schools harmless means.
Thank you so much.
That's why we need the diversity of this committee that we each possess. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
sure.
If anybody else sees any clarifying things on here, please. You know, we want to make sure, you know, information is only good if it's factual, right? If we understand it. Yes, Angela.
So you can drop my hand because I Googled it, and that's what he just said. It means that all the schools would be allocated the funds for pre-pandemic levels. I was just going to tell you, when you said you couldn't find it, I looked it up.
Oh, thank you, Angela.
So thank you.
Other questions, comments, observations, criticisms?
All right.
So Carly did a wonderful job of going through and sifting through all this and putting it in a little easier to read.
Yeah.
So Carly, thank you.
No problem. I do want to go through our just like the general categories of our request. I see that John has his hand raised. If you want to ask your question before I move forward.
Thanks, Carly. Not a question, actually, it's a statement. And you've heard this before, so it's so for you, this may be beating a dead horse, but I've said it in a couple of other committees already. It says with the timing of the budget every year, we start in September. It has to be done by the preliminary has to be done by November. As the one thing that should be considered, that there's at least one meeting during the summer to get a head start on this, because it's going to be really crazy next year, because we may be giving this information to two different sets of people, because since it's an election year, there may be new people in these positions in some of these agencies next year. So it may be really important to really get our requests in. We get them in a timely fashion, but we may have to start working on them a little earlier.
It's like a continuous process.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why it's become a standing agenda item in the meetings now, is that, you know, we pretty much have to devote some time at each committee meeting to, you know, looking this over, researching it, addressing it, advocating, and like Carly mentioned, do we want to make testimony on any of these issues? You know, which is in a written form that's submitted and can be oral as well. So, Carly, why don't you go through this stuff?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and once again, apologize for earlier. I am exhausted, and yeah, anyway, so I'm just gonna move forward. So I grouped it so that we don't have to go over each and every budget request, save some time. So the funded category includes requests that had responses that said accommodate using existing resources, funding's been restored, a project's currently in design, this project's been funded. And that's not to say that once it's in this category, it means we're done with it, especially for the requests that say accommodate using existing resources. That's going to require some follow-up on our end, and we can do that during the budget consultations. But, you know, for the purpose of this exercise, it technically is funded if they're using existing resources. So I will just read them out now. So the PPE in schools, that has been funded. SIEP has been fully restored. We had our budget request ask that it be restored, and it has been. The Train and Earn program out of school youth job training and employment. I'm going to group this in with the after school programming for older youth, only because they had the same response. And basically it was like, you know, we have existing programs that exist for this purpose. If there are any additional programs that, you know, we're considering, we will release it using an RFP process. So that the purpose of that response is to say that their funding process is different than like, it's like it's helpful for them to know that like we want more of this, but at the end of the day, that's not how their funding process works for those specific programs. Yeah, and then the enhanced English, the ESOL services, that had the same response actually. Technology upgrades for remote learning models, that's been funded. So those are our funded requests. The ones that were not funded, the ones that said that they need further study, they have fiscal constraints, we should bring them to the attention of our local elected officials. Neither of our capital requests for schools were funded. The wiring at PS 146 and the bathrooms at the Lexington Academy. We picked these two requests out of the spreadsheet that Calaris had, or no, I'm sorry, not Calaris.
Dr. Christie.
Bruce, yeah, Christy. She had shared with us, which was really helpful. But, you know, so Eva had actually written me and asked, you know, like what is the deal with that? And prior to some of you joining the board, the School Construction Authority came to present about how they make these funding decisions, and it's like a ranking system. Mm-hmm. And I guess compared to other capital requests from other schools, like maybe the need wasn't as great.
Well, you know, I would say this, you know, because just to put a little context. So like the Lexington Academy is where I work out of, right? And we didn't make this request, it was done through DOE. However, because 171 is under construction during the summer, 171 kids go to 72 for the summer. So they can't close down 72 to do the bathrooms because there won't be a place to run the school program. So it's in addition to what colleague kind of gave is the priority level. Unless it's a 5, it doesn't get done in the priority scale. The priority for Lexington bathrooms is subsided, not because it's not a priority, it's because there's another school that can't absorb 72 at this time. So there's a lot of things that go into, I'm learning more and more as I'm in the school, and I'm learning what I can get around and what I can't through DOE. And there's some things we just don't have control over, no matter what we advocate for. But I think we need to continue to call attention to these things, particularly around the technology upgrades we've asked for in schools, because it's only going to get greater. Schools are going to be remote. There's no more snow days. There's no more of these other days. So remote is going to be part of the learning process. And the infrastructure in the schools still need to be. So I know I'm preaching, but I'm sorry, Carly.
No, that's helpful context. So thank you. Yeah.
Right, they need to wire that building, 146.
I'm sorry, what was that?
No, I'm talking to myself.
Okay. Okay, and then the Peter Minuit Playground, we had submitted a request for it, both from the Parks Committee and like to NYC Parks and to DOE because of like the school playground aspect of it. They wound up transferring the request over to New York City Parks. So DOE didn't even consider it. It's not within their funds to upgrade the playground and build a comfort station. I will say, and David's on the committee, I will say that they are building like a soccer pitch for that playground.
The mayor's.
Yeah, it's not from the city fund. It's free with the soccer initiative. It's not like a perfect alternative to a playground, like a New York City Parks state-of-the-art playground, but no.
It will improve the use of the space for kids that actually do use it. So
yeah, okay. And then, so we also had submitted a request to ACS about an alternative to incarceration. They said it was not recommended for funding. This is not under their jurisdiction. And then finally, the expand childcare, Head Start programs, and 3K and pre-K for all to cover after school hours between 3 to 5 p.m. to help out working parents. They told us that they had answered this in a previous fiscal year, and they did. And I went back to that to fiscal year 2021, and their response was needs further study. So they told me to refer back to the study because they refer back to last year because they answered it, but their answer was purely need further study. And I feel like that's kind of a.
We should change it to conduct study.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a trend. Like when it comes to asking agencies to explore new initiatives that might not fall within, an initiative or a program that they currently have. Like they don't essentially what we're doing is asking them to consider a new policy solution. It's some and when we put them in our budget requests, they don't respond favorably. It's not to say we shouldn't. It's just a trend I've noticed.
They find another way of telling us no. That's
yeah. Yeah. And then finally, the funding uncertain, recommended for funding, but it's not clear whether or not it is. So we had made two requests: one to fund or to give schools in our district more teachers to help accommodate the hybrid remote learning teaching model, and then a request to get more mental health and social workers into our schools. And both of the responses were the same, and essentially it was just saying that funding follows a different process. Principals have the direct control over their respective school-based staffing needs. So I guess principals need to submit their staffing needs. I had also read with the fair school funding, like I mentioned earlier, that a lot of the funding is going to be used at the principal's discretion, and oftentimes it is used for staffing. So I'm wondering, now I'm kind of thinking, how do we bridge the gaps?
Carly, who gave that response for that? Was that DOE?
Yeah.
So they passed it off to the principals. What a cop-out. And principals can only hire based on their budgets, right? So we need to make sure that principals are seeing the need for that. It's almost, principals are not going to pay for social workers.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's something to consider as a committee. And I'm wondering now, one, I want to take questions about this if anyone needs anything clarified. And then two, I want to know if, as a committee, you're interested in submitting testimony. And if so, what points do you really want to hone in on? And yeah, those are my questions.
Questions? Members, any hands raised, Carly?
I don't see any hands raised.
Anything sparks for people? Lights that fire?
We did have a lot of good news from DYCD. Oh, Rev Brown has her hand raised.
No, it's just a comment, a suggestion. As relates to expand childcare, Head Start programs, so on and so forth. Oftentimes, we get that response of further study is required. I think what David said, he said it in just, but I really think we should respond with requesting that a study be done.
Well, then do a study, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. I know you said it kind of off the cuff, but I believe it has a lot of validity, and we should do that. And that further pushes the needle and it require them to either come up with a flat out no, or see that there is something that they can do within their jurisdiction.
Or maybe we also look for studies that substantiate the need for this, right? And the slots. I mean, again, if this is also now tied into what the new thing with Biden is coming out, shouldn't that include that? Or did they gamble and not put it in their own budget, thinking that Biden will come? I mean, I don't know, because that's what they're saying is pre-K for all, right? That's what Biden's been saying.
Well, I think we should take both approach. I think one, we do research on our end, but I think we should also, our response, don't leave something that's not responded to. Our response should be requesting a study.
Yep, sounds good, Red.
A pre-K for all was one of the signature initiatives of the de Blasio administration. So a number of these things are covered, but there's still more needs that needs to be addressed. So number one, request for them a study. So give a request that uses their language. And also we can look at what other precedents are already out there, what type of studies were done, so that we can have ammunition, information to help them move along in the way that we want them to go.
Rev,
Just
are
a
you,
suggestion.
oh, I'm sorry. Are you saying that this is something that you want to, include in our budget request for next year, include in our district budget consultations, or are you saying that this is something you want to have, submit testimony on or about?
See, what's funny is, I'm sorry, Rez.
Okay, I'm saying that we should put it in our budget requests and continue this request going on. Now, as far as a testimony, unless we have the data that would come out of seeing what other reports or what other type of studies that were done in other locales, if we don't have that, I don't see a reason for testifying, because we won't have the data unless we're going to testify based upon the need. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think that the committee, we need to do our due diligence and see what
and it's almost something we possibly, if we did the research right, we would write a resolution, really, because then you're really kind of substantiating why this is a concern and an issue and why it needs to be addressed, right? So
yes, a three-pronged approach. Don't just use one form, one tactic. We might have to use multiple tactics.
Yeah. Okay. Eva has her hand raised.
Is there a quick way for us to do a study ourselves?
there's a way. Do we all have the time, and can we all get together in a week? Because you're talking about.
Oh, no, not for the testimony, but I'm just talking about before
2
we
weeks.
plan on next year's budget, to truly confirm that there is such a need. And it might be working with just early childhood agencies. I think working with employment agencies also, because oftentimes they run into issue with people who want a job but could not take the job that are available because of lack of childcare.
Yeah, right, and specifically, this was for programs to expand. See, so the school programs end at 2 o'clock, 2:30.
I know, exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, go ahead, Carly. Please.
Yeah. So to your question about, is there a way to do a quick study? I don't think there's such thing as a quick study. I will say that, I mean, because I'm sure you know that like collecting data and doing the proper outreach, and that's time. It requires a lot of time, requires a lot of resources, and I'm not sure that, so let me just backtrack. So a couple things. One, the district needs and budget committee. We did it last year. Get more responses this year, but they're going to do a survey, like a public input survey, and hopefully, I mean, last year no one said anything specific about that, but it's not to say that there's not the need. Maybe. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that I think first, before we decide to, I think it's always worth seeing if that work has already been done prior to doing it ourselves. Because like I said before, like we're under-resourced as it is. So, but I appreciate that. And I think that it's worth following up on.
Yeah, looking at previous studies, or I mean, how did this item get on the budget? What was the genesis of it, right? Is it just like a subjective determination, or were there people who actually petitioned?
No, this is actually based on parents who work and have to have alternative ways to pick up children. Or you have a child that's third grade and another one that's pre-K. The third grader could stay for after school program and get educational enhancements, but you have to take home the pre-K child, right? So again, for many parents, if you don't have a support system, it puts a strain. And you may, and this is the crux of it, right? Where you'll have maybe a community center based after school early childhood program that goes to 5 or 6 because they have the space, they can conduce it, right? So those programs are the ones closing, like arts, that they're taking funding away. Parents are also trying to get their kids in the school daycare because then that pretty much helps your child get into the school. It's almost like that path of getting into the school. So there are many different pros and cons. But again, the availability of if I have another child and now is in pre-K, it doesn't mean I don't have to work till 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. So.
Okay.
No, I'm just mainly trying to understand the source to see if we can trace back to find data to substantiate. I'm not questioning whether this is, a valid request.
Thank you, Eva. Yeah, we'll look into it. So Jason has his hand raised, and then Rev Brown has his hand raised.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick suggestion. Since we're talking about this idea of doing studies, obviously there are limited resources that we have as a community board. I think some of these issues, it might make sense for us to be working with our elected officials, especially in city council, since they do serve on different committees and they do provide a public oversight function. And the city council can do their own studies on different issues that we care about. And so I think, I guess that's a question. Are we in conversation with our local city council members? Can we ask them to follow up on some of these requests? And that's kind of my suggestion, because I think that, we do have limited resources as a community board, and there is obviously a function for the city council on these issues.
Jason, I think you raised many different good issues, but one particularly is, I think we should ask the councilwoman to also have representation at this committee, particularly because they deal with a lot of issues around youth. They used to come to the committee. Elsie, at the time when she worked with the councilwoman, attended the committee. And maybe we should ask for Mario or a representative from her office to come so that we can, discuss some of these concerns and find out what their positions are, and not at a full board where we could really have it. So maybe we could reach out to their office. I mean, I have no problem reaching out to Diana.
And I guess whoever they send, that it's someone who can speak to the substance of the issues, because sometimes they provide announcements at our community board meetings, but they're not necessarily able to speak on the policies or the substance of the issues that we're working on.
Right. So specifically request they come, and like we did with DYCD, we want to know what the status is of the Sonic funding and the funding for SYP. So maybe we pose some of these questions. What's your position on early child care programs? Yada, yada, yada. So yes, let's work on that. Let's, we're being more proactive, but we got to continue to be. Carly, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Rev Brown has her hand raised.
Okay. And that's a very good suggestion, Jason, because one of the things that we can do in inviting representation is to invite with an area of conversation so that they can come prepared and we can get more than just general announcements. And in addition to that, knowing that early childhood and various other educational challenges is not something unique to New York or to East Harlem for that matter. There are national studies that have done, and we could draw upon some of those and drill it down to our local level so that we can be informed and have more to present in our argument or in our resolution. For instance, there's an organization called the National Conference of State Legislation, and they have recently produced a study, if you will, on this very same issue. So there's some things that we can do with gathering what already has been done and making it applicable to our community. At the same time, drawing upon our council representatives and state also, so that they can also begin to address this, but inviting them, give them a specific task for why they're coming to the meeting, so they can be prepared.
Good.
A suggestion.
No, thanks both Rev and Jason. I think, again, we need answers addressed sometimes, and we need to follow up kind of things that we talked about, concerns, and not leave them hang. So let's ask what people's positions are. They behind certain things, or are they not? And it's important to know that. Any other, Carly?
No, I mean, that's it. Unless anyone, has something they want the committee to testify about, that I think we can move on. This is really for information purposes only, unless there was a desire to provide testimony.
Look, we're moving in the right direction. Maybe next year we'll be ready 2 months before the
Yeah,
hearing.
I mean, when it comes to the executive budget, like, it was released on the 26th. We only have May. It's just
Right.
cycle every year, and if you don't have anything specific, like, if you feel satisfied with this committee's requests, there's a ton of other requests that were not funded in other committees, and it's not required that you testify. So yeah, and Robert has his hand raised.
Mr. Harvey, please.
Yeah, sure. I was just thinking about the conversation just being had around the around childcare options and surveying and research. Something that strikes me is that with the recent child tax credit extension through 2025, and families having access now to the child tax dollars, and with the family rescue plan trying to shift the percentage of costs for families to be able to access childcare, how that could have a positive impact. And then I'll happily email it around. A recent study came out from the Children's Defense Fund in partnership with the Robin Hood Foundation around the impact of non-traditional employment on childcare. That might be a helpful starting point for people, and they overlay it with the American Family Rescue Plan to try to make sense of how that could impact child poverty, family access to early childhood, and any other kind of funding context. So I'll happily share that when we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments, any other comments regarding that? We'll continue to grow on our process. I want to thank Carly for doing a lot of diligent work. I think your presentation was better than the other committee today, so it's good. I think, again, as we standardize certain practices on the committee, it helps us all to work within structure and guides to make things happen. So we have, I guess, old business, right? I just want to, Xavier would have been here today, but he's not. Unfortunately, he had another engagement. However, we did meet last week with some community members, some board members around reorganization of providing a youth symposium. We're looking to provide this in July. We do want to make a connection, and part of the group talked about it maybe with the Councilwoman's Youth Fair that they do outside. So this may be a good way to reach out to the Councilwoman's office. This is some of the work we're planning on doing. We'd like to hear about what some of these other issues that we're working on and what you view on them. So I'll make that connection, and me, Carly, and Rev can frame a few things and get it, and reach out to the office. So with the youth symposium, we are looking to do it in July. We're looking to have teen youth facilitate groups with younger youth. We talked about a possible social justice theme and how kids have experienced that over the last year and a half, or just experienced it in their life. Again, we talked about youth really facilitating it with support of the adult group that's working with this. We had representatives, Michael Parker from Union Settlement, the Hub. We had Omar from SAVE. We had several community board members. Rev Brown will be involved. Xavier, Pastor Scott, and also Elsie. John was also there as well. And so we're meeting again this Thursday, and we're really gonna take this off. So the idea is maybe to utilize our SYEP youth, our teen youth, to help go through a series of social justice workshops and forums that we would then kind of have the kids present those different issues, and then also have the kids facilitate, look for the kids to possibly get a stipend through the union settlement program. So they've been training some of the kids that they've been working with to be youth facilitators. So I had 2 kids that went through their program. We're actually meeting for our last session this Thursday. And it's been a really good experience for kids. They've learned training topics while learning to train in the topics, particularly around social health and some of the stuff that, we had a presentation on earlier by the YES program. So again, we're just looking to get this off. We would definitely like to work with you, Marcus, around this particular project, but also your project. And again, how we collaborate as a community to address the needs of the youth and give youth a voice and a platform. So the symposium is also to help support youth and give them a platform. I do want to tie in some of the youth symposium and moving forward to identifying youth to be part of a task force, a youth task force, as you've heard me say redundantly for the last year or whatever, that we really need to have youth sit at the table, be part of this committee, be part of this board, and again, allow youth to have the voice that we have here sitting today. So that's just some of where we are with the youth symposium. There'll be a lot of opportunities for those to help. We would definitely love to have, our Harlem Careers as part of this process and as a resource available to the kids and families that will attend. So we just want to get you involved. Again, we're going to start meeting very intensely over the next few weeks so that we really pull this off and do it like in the middle of July. So again, this was something we started right before COVID. We began to meet with kids. We kind of used the Renaissance School that Elsie is the community director of. And we're just hoping, again, to get a good group of kids to really lead and give them that platform and voice. Any questions, any ideas, any other thoughts?
And that's why it's so important for us to collaborate again, that we as a board, as a committee, whether it's few or many, we get to go to some of these services, some of the resources that are doing things just like MAP and some of the others at the settlement, because when we go to them, we'll go to their constituents, their youth. And so we can engage at that level, sitting here around our table and inside of the community board and hoping that people will come. It usually doesn't work that well. I mean, we'll be waiting a long time, but if we go out and make ourselves visible, where there will be inquiry, and in inquiry, we begin to have a greater level of engagement. So I'm looking forward to us continuing the work that we began last year, but again, it requires us being servants even to those who are already providing service within the community.
Thank you, Rev. Marcus Johnson, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to just echo those sentiments real quick around engagement, because engagement is everything. I speak to partners all the time around like basically having a flyer isn't enough. It takes much more to engage the community. And one thing I would say about the work we're doing across the city is that we're great engagers with the community. Somebody may we may be promoting a program and somebody may be like, oh, I don't got time, and they're walking, we'll walk with them and we'll talk to them about the program. We'll talk to them in ways in which they can receive it and just really getting out there to Ms. Brown's point is just that's really the way how to kind of connect those gaps is really through engaging intentionally. And sometimes we want to get people enrolled into our programs, but it's through the consistent exposure, consistency of being out there on the grounds is when you're going to get people to get familiar with the program, get familiar with who you are. And then eventually things like that do start to trickle in. But the biggest part is just getting the community to know you. And the first part to that is you got to be visible. So, yeah.
I can't agree with you more, Marcus and Reverend Brown. You know, in all the work I do, and I train youth workers every year, and I use this quote with them. Show interest in that child when you want nothing from them, and you'll be surprised at what they give you in return. And I put that in the context, and I'll say it in the context of 3 principles that I work very closely with. And I kind of model the same behavior. When the morning starts and kids are entering the school, all 3 of these principles are all out front and outside, greeting kids, knowing kids, finding out that little thing that that kid knows. So when I'm asking you to do this extra work, I'm not taking you to do extra work. I'm nurturing you towards something that's going to be better for you. And I'll leave this last thing. And it's a quote by Unknown. Be kind before being right. And we all, as professionals or parents or supervisors, directors, or whatever role that we play, yeah, we may know the right way or the right thing, but how do we communicate that to somebody else? How do we teach the right way, the right thing, the right way? So again, engagement, building relationships, particularly with youth. Youth know when you're not genuine, and when you're not genuine, they will not pay you the time of day. But when they know that you are genuine with them and that you're engaging them in something and that you are generally showing true interest in what they're about and not what your agenda is, you will be surprised how far they will go with you. And you know, I work with youth for 40 years, so I'm preaching at the moment. I got a lot of pastors and reverends on this committee. So this is my committee and my church choir, and I'm going to sing and preach. So youth work is important. Mr. Johnson, I really look forward to working with you and how we can collaborate. Again, you know, the work is in the community. The work is in the community. The work is not in an office. So I think we all need to get out a little bit more, share in some of these kinds of events that go on in our community. I know parks, we're going out to clean up Jefferson in a week or 2, one of these days we all agreed on. But it's about how we come together and find a common interest. And Marcus, seeing those pictures where you got people together, that's what it's all about, community. With that said, do we have any new business for tonight? I don't think so. I know these dogs is hounding me. I got 3 dogs. They all under me trying to get out. Any questions, any last thoughts? I really appreciate this committee and the work that we're beginning to do as a group. I look forward to bringing in new members in June. I hope that everybody here is with us, will continue with us as we're really moving in the right direction. So I thank everybody. Carly, is there anything else?
Just a second roll call.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Please do. These dogs are waiting.
So is mine. Brown?
I'm still here.
Chen?
You're here.
Donadell?
I'm barely here.
Giordano?
I'm always here.
Green?
Out.
Harvey?
I'm here.
Heredia?
You have to be professional.
Martin?
Here.
McCullough?
Here.
Perez?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Schuler?
Here.
And Wu.
Here.
All right. That's it. I think this is the biggest committee. The roll call is the longest. All right. That's all.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Carly, see you Thursday. David, see you Thursday at the other meeting.
Night.
Bye.
Everyone.
I don't gotta be at that meeting. I'm gonna be at, oh yeah, that meeting I'll be at. Later, John.
Okay.
All right. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you all. Bye, Carly.